Welcome to the virtual lunch. Today is Friday, October 30th, and this is virtual lunch number 164, I believe. Gail would always be in the box next to me, and she'd always laugh when I went like that, so I just had to do that. Anyway, so Gabe's the Assistant Dean of Innovation, Strategic Initiatives, and Distance Education, and a professor of legal writing at Suffolk University Law School.
I'm a faculty member at Suffolk Law. I've been there for 15 years, and for the last 5 or so, I've overseen our legal innovation and technology program. And we were the first law school that really put one of those together to train students on things that we think are important that, frankly, there is no effective way for them to learn otherwise. And then this year, I took on a broader role, and I'm not just overseeing our legal tech program, but also working on our distance education program. We have a new program that, if I do say so, is dynamite. It's going to allow students to go in person for 1 year and remote for 2 years to do things like trying to reverse brain drain, where people have to leave service jobs in areas without law schools to come to a city. We're going to get them back home so that they can do both. And I also oversee strategic initiatives, which for law schools is something new. We think like entrepreneurs. We're a nonprofit, but that doesn't mean that we need to be stodgy. And my job is to lead that charge. Yeah, so this is actually the first time the ABA has ever allowed for a program this remote to be approved and to be accredited and to allow people to take the bar. But the way it works is like this. A student will come in, they'll be in person for the first year. They'll get those traditional first year law school experiences. And then for the upper level, if they want to be completely remote, they can be, which means that they can work, they can care for others, they can live in lower cost parts of the world because Boston is super expensive. They're still full members of the community. So if they want to be on campus or if they want to do those things that traditional upper level law students can do, that's kosher too, but they have that flexibility. So that's something that I'm super excited for. We're going to see where it goes. For the last several years, law students have been able to take a number of credits online, and we started to run online courses, and we're getting some really, really positive feedback from students. We have a lot of students who are evening students who are tech specs by day. They're like patent agents trying to become patent attorneys, and they really value flexibility. So they were enjoying those online courses. We have all sorts of professionals who are like instructional designers who can put together really good experiences with online courses. And the feedback we were getting was more of that, more of that, more of that. So for several years, we worked internally about how we would do this, how we would model it, how we would staff it, how we would get people interested in it, and how we would make sure that we do things like assure that there's diversity and inclusion in the program. We brought it to the ABA. We had a hearing. The ABA was incredibly supportive, and they said approved. So just a couple of weeks ago, we got approved. Students can apply actually now for fall 2021, and the online courses will start fall 2022 because they're first year in person. There are two different ways to think about educating people in a digital world. One is that information is becoming more easily accessible and you can learn skills really, really quickly. And then on the other end of things, some jobs still require a credential, and being a lawyer is one of them. And what we want to do is we want to democratize that piece of it too. So the things that still require a credential, we want to make it so people have more flexibility to learn all they can. So in my perfect world, we'd get students who would come into this program who would be from a place like, say, Appalachia, and they would spend a year with us in person in Boston. Then they would go back to Appalachia if they chose to, go back to the role that they have there, go back to being a community leader there, and complete the program remotely while they're taking care of business wherever home is. And then the other way to think about it is we have a lot of single parents and cops and hardworking nurses who come to our program. And it's just really hard for them to spend an hour or two commuting a day so that they can be with us, even in the night program. I went to law school at night. I was a federal agent when I did it. It was a mess. And I got through, but it would have been much, much easier if 2/3 of my credits could have been remote. But I think that's the future. I hope the ABA sees this as an example and approves more law schools that want to do likewise. It's a nice way to do things.
Do you anticipate ever going completely online?
Two challenges with that. One is that the ABA has never approved a completely online law school. We are now the outer limit of what they have approved. There have been some very, very successful completely online law schools, but they're not ABA approved. Concord Law School, which is based in California, but it's obviously all over the world, has been quite successful. The challenge is that their students can't take the bar exam. The other piece is that it's hard to get around that enculturation element. Part of going to law school or being a part of any sort of educational community is doing those things that come along with being a part of it. That means sitting in the cafeteria and having a study group with classmates. For law students, that means moot court and dealing with final exams and dealing with the gunner in the class and all those sorts of things. And other programs, even outside of law, have those same sorts of hallmark, trademark elements that are very hard to simulate online. And we want to make sure that people get some of those experiences too, because it's important. So we have this legal tech program, which we started in 2013, and we have a number of students who have taken all of the courses within that. So that's like the process improvement class and the data science class and the low code, no code class and the new business models class. But then we just have a broader group of students who said, I'm interested in this. And they've taken some of the classes and they want to be part of it. There are 215 members of the Legal Innovation and Tech Student Association this year. So we have more members in our Legal Tech Student Association than some law schools have students. The most profound effect hasn't been on students who have gone on specifically to legal tech careers, although every year we have a few students who do that. The most profound effect has been for students who want to practice traditional law, but to leverage legal innovation and technology. For example, I had this one wonderful student a couple of years ago who said, I want to be a family law lawyer. She'd always dreamed of doing that, but I want to do something with legal tech. So when she was doing her interviews, she showed off an automation that she built to the managing partner, and she negotiated. She said, look, rather than billing 1,800 hours a year on family law matters, divorces and adoptions and all that, how about I do 900 hours a year on that, and the other 900 I help to automate our law firm so we work more efficiently. And she was able to find a home doing that. So thinking meaningfully about how you can learn these skills and then how you can transition them into practice is a real thing. And the one advantage we've given students is we've given them a central place that helps to distribute resumes and market them because we've created a brand for it. I'm a visiting fellow at Yale Law School, and I spend a lot of time at the Information Society Project. And it's interesting how schools define what they want to do. Now, Yale and Harvard both have wonderful tech policy shops, but they're not particularly interested in legal innovation and technology. So even these big, powerful, highly ranked schools tend to sort of limit the scope of the things that they're interested in. And yeah, Suffolk and Chicago Kent and Miami and Michigan State have said, no, we're interested in legal tech. And I think that's helpful to students. But the tech law stuff is valuable too. It's just a slightly different angle to approach careers. I mean, some of the best legal tech startups are run by people who didn't go to law school. And the reality is that it's useful to have an understanding about how law and legal systems work to build a legal tech startup. Anyone who's building a startup has to have empathy for their end user. If you've never worked around the end users, it's hard to have that empathy, but it can be done sort of part and parcel of the process of building a product or a productized service. Having said that, there is a whole world of opportunity for people that come with a JD, but are going to be interested in leveraging legal tech skills or legal innovation skills along with it. So that's the sweet spot we hit. There's this conflict between knowledge and credential. And the knowledge can be achieved without the credential. And in some cases, the credential can be achieved without the knowledge. One of the things that we found is that a JD isn't necessary or useful for a lot of people. It's useful for people who want to practice law and require a license to do so. And then it's also useful for that subset of people who live in a culture that requires a JD, even if you're not actively practicing law. So if you said, I'm an HR professional and I want to go from manager to VP, having a law degree is quite useful, even if you'll never represent a client. So there are always those difficult sort of cultural questions. It's just a question of whether your goals will be met without that credential. We teach a class called 21st Century Legal Profession. And when I started teaching it, I took it over from Jordan Furlong. And I made a class on new business models for law and thinking about everything in the delivery of legal services except billing hours and contingency. And then someone came along, a woman named Kelly Proya, and she runs a company called Logicate. And Logicate is a training firm that teaches largely big law, but other legal professionals how to market and brand themselves. So we now run two versions of 21st Century Legal Profession. Half the students are stuck with me. I mostly focus on new business models, but the lucky ones get Kelly. And she teaches them all of those things about how to build the business end of their identity. So Boston Legal Design Challenge is an event we host, and we co-host it with Liberty Mutual Insurance, which is like a super generous sponsor. And we have 50 plus students that are from around the country this year, from around the world. They get together, they work in small teams, they learn about how design thinking works. They're given a problem to solve. They work throughout the day in hackathon style. And at the end of the day, they present their solution using the skills they've been taught to actually create something. And they've all learned something about how design thinking works and how it can be applied to law. So pretty exciting stuff.
Gabe Teninbaum, everyone.
Yay.